Hello and welcome back to my Let's Play of Final Fantasy III. Hopefully by now you're all caught up on parts 1 and 2 and can begin 3 knowing what has been going on. We last left off with Terra unconscious and Locke trying to save her with the assistance of 2 Moogles. We'll be coming up on a second boss fight here in a bit, but it isn't much to eliminate him. After all of this happens, Terra and Locke gets acquainted with one another, and we move on to the next part of the game. In the main area, we're to go south to the desert region, and to the kingdom of Figaro, led by King Edgar. My second favorite character of the ensemble, that is Final Fantasy III's cast. I can't wait until any new viewers who aren't familiar with this game gets to meet him. He's a real flirt. And I've met my fair share of flirts in the past. I'd like to talk a little bit about the music fanfare that plays at the end of a battle. This theme goes all the way back to the original Final Fantasy game for NES, and has been used in many of the classic Final Fantasy games. I think its last usage was in either Final Fantasy IX or X. After that I can't remember if it was ever used again in a Final Fantasy game. We're also about to see more of Kefka soon. The royal jester with a chemical imbalance in the brain. Okay, I don't know that for sure, but he's not right in the head. Though he easily has some of the best quotes in the game, and it's funny that it's all because of how the translator translated the game. Had they stayed true to the translation, I don't think Kefka would have had his spark that he had in the westernized version of this game. I don't think he was that fond of by the Japanese audience in the original script. Figaro's castle is amazing, and a moving castle in the desert. Why the desert? I don't know. Maybe King Edgar likes the heat. Edgar has some cool moves that are going to come in handy once we have him as a playable character. With his various tools, he can use on multiple enemies at a time for double damage. I always love using him as a result. He also has a twin brother named Sabin, who's a lovable doofus and powerhouse. I mean, he suplexes a train. That's badass. By the way, my partner now has a YouTube channel of her own called Firestone Reviews. So give her a watch if you enjoyed my videos. And don't forget to smash that like button and show me some love. I think my core 4 favorite characters are Locke, Edgar, Terra, and Seals, with Sabin being a distant 5th. They were also the most I've used once I had a choice of my party, and the plot didn't dictate who I used when. Like a lot of Final Fantasy games that came before and after this title, it's fairly linear at the start, until later in the game where it opens up and then you can go anywhere you want. But the first truly open-world Final Fantasy game, not counting the MMO of 11, would be 12. Then 13 went in the opposite direction of that move for some reason, before its direct sequels were more open-world to answer the criticism directed at the first 13. I always hated how Terra had the lowest health of the 2 guys you get at the start of the game. Meaning I would usually keep an eye on her health the most and heal her the most to keep her on par with Locke and Edgar. Though it helps that she can use magic like fire and cure, which saves me on my items like tonics and potions. Though sometimes I would use the items instead, to reserve Hera's MP. I often switch on which one I wanted the most of, and it drove me crazy sometimes. Another creature that's iconic in Final Fantasy games that we'll see in Figaro are the Chocobos, which takes the place of horses and the likes in most classic Final Fantasy games. While riding a Chocobo, you can go anywhere on the map without running into a random encounter. And in Final Fantasy VII, you can even raise and race Chocobos after a certain part in the game. The plot of Final Fantasy III is rather simple, at least at the start. And that's something you'll find in a lot of Final Fantasy games. The plot always starts with a simple arc, and then it gradually gets more complicated as the plot advances. This is something you'll see as I advance further and further into the game. We'll meet even more amazing and unique characters, playable and non-playable, and the party will continue to grow until we have several party members to choose from. I think Final Fantasy III has one of the biggest parties in any Final Fantasy game. And I can't think of which ones come close to it, with maybe the exceptions being 10, 12, and 13. So, what should we talk about in the comment section for this video? How about what we think of desert settings in video games and fantasy? As well as fond or even not so fond memories of the Chocobo creature in Final Fantasy. Of course, we also need to talk about Edgar, Sabine, and a little bit more of Kefka. All good topics of conversation to have in the comments section if you're looking to leave one. I'm not too worried about it. People will start to comment when they feel comfortable doing so. The Figaro section is a rather easy part to get through, as once you get there really isn't much battling or bosses to worry about. It's mostly story-driven, with us learning about Edgar, Figaro's relationship with the Empire, Sabine, and Locke's connection to Edgar before Terra thinks on where to go from here. At least until Kefka comes and set the place on fire. Another thing I always liked about Figaro Castle is that it can move from place to place. It has an engine room, and it was kinda like what Balamb Garden became in Final Fantasy VIII long before that game came to be. Only you can't control Figaro at any part in the game. That I remember anyway. Missed opportunity, really. But there are really few missed opportunities in this game, when you think about everything this game has to offer players even in this day and age. I say they just don't make them like they used to. One thing I'm trying to do in this Let's Play is allow Locke more time to steal items from other enemies that can be useful for the party. So once I have 3 party members, I'll put Edgar and Terra on a fence while Locke goes for the steal. You don't always get an item, but in the past I've often overlooked the thief class steal technique and wasted it a lot in the game. I don't intend on doing that during this playthrough. I also can't wait until we get to Sabine's part of the game, because he has a lot of good techniques that are going to come in handy later down the line. And I say he's easily the strongest character in the party. Not counting Terra with her ties to magic. The strongest physical character, I should say. Also, another thing to always remember when playing old-school Japanese RPG games, or really any RPG, is to always explore your surroundings. You never know when you might find a chest with an item you need or a secret passage that give you value in the game. Sometimes though chests can contain an enemy, but I can't remember if Final Fantasy III pull that crap or not. I can think of a ton of other RPG games that do though. I also hope I help anyone who gets stuck on this game, and is looking for a walkthrough of sorts to get past a certain part of the game. I don't claim to be an expert strategist or pro at the game despite how many times I've played it, but I know a few things or two that might help. So far we're still in the easier parts of the game. I don't think it gets challenging until a couple more hours into the main story mode. Another thing I really enjoy about the game is Kefka's theme whenever he enters the scene. It's just catchy and signalizes his presence greatly. As well as the crazy laugh of his. Easily the closest thing Final Fantasy has ever gotten to the Joker. Though they may have made him too much like the Joker in Dissidia. But I digress. Oh, I have a question for you, the audience. Have you ever shipped anyone in Final Fantasy III? As I said in a previous video, I used to ship Locke with Seals all the time after I got done obsessing over myself. I never really shipped Terra with anyone. Nobody seemed to fit her personality in my mind. Except maybe Locke, and I already had Locke with Seals. I couldn't see Terra hooking up with Edgar or Sabine, but maybe that's just me. I will warn anyone who never played an old-school RPG before. The random encounters will most likely get on your nerves at some point in the game, unless you're grinding to raise your level and stats. Sometimes it won't let you move more than 2 or 3 steps before bang. Random encounter. I know it's part of the charm, but sometimes it's an inconvenience as well. Some modern players today will never understand the struggle. First world problems over here. The active time battle system though is pretty cool. Basically, you wait for your gauge to fill up and then that character is ready to attack. The enemies will keep attacking once their gauge is full even if you don't do anything. So it's all real time. Then you have your choice between attack, magic, tool, and whatever skill that character may have. Like steal or a technique. Later on in the game we'll have summons and other such powers and skills to call on that will be a game changer later. The memories reliving in my head are so nice ever since I first put this game into my Super Nintendo. It's really taking me back to childhood. I think Final Fantasy III will always be my favorite Final Fantasy game. I can't foresee any other Final Fantasy title being able to come close to my love for this game. I know a lot of it is bias and nostalgia. There are probably better games out there, but I challenge you to find many with the story and character arcs of Final Fantasy III. I think the only RPGs that come close outside of other Final Fantasy games are Chrono Trigger and Xenogears. Back in the day when 3DS remakes of Final Fantasy games were becoming the norm, I pretty much imagined that if they did remake Final Fantasy III, it would be done in the 3DS style. But after hearing that a lot of people didn't like those games, and with the Switch kinda taking over the 3DS system, I wonder if it wouldn't be a more 3D powerhouse on the Switch, if not the PlayStation or Xbox. Though Final Fantasy on any Xbox system is weird, since I'm used to my Final Fantasy on either Nintendo or PlayStation. Nintendo must have felt betrayed when Square moved their exclusive titles to their rival Sony. Once again, it's time to start wrapping this chapter of my Let's Play series up. As usual, I thank everyone who has watched this video and has been watching my previous videos on the channel. I hope to have part 4 up the following week and keep letting these flow out weekly, but if for whatever reason that's not possible to do, then it'll probably become a bi-weekly deal. Either way, I don't plan to give up playing this game anytime soon. I'm having fun making these videos for you all, and I'm enjoying the engagements I am getting. Special thanks to my friend TJ for pimping out my and my partner's respective YouTube channels. If for some reason you haven't seen my other videos, then click on the videos that are appearing on the screen.